Welcome, and here we go again, and welcome back to Missless Moon. More specifically, this is Torchwood Week on the channel, where I will be taking a look at the best bits and the worst bits of all 4 seasons of Torchwood, because I haven't covered Torchwood in great detail yet, so I thought it was time to. I watched it last year, didn't do any videos on it, need to do some videos on it. So today I will be talking about Series 2 of the show. First of all, before I start, I need to do a channel intro because I lost the old channel intro that I made on the old computer. So I need to make a new channel intro just to nass it up a bit. I've got enough time on my hands. Anyway, I will be taking a look at Series 2. So personally, I think Series 2 is much more successful than Series 1. Yesterday, I covered Series 1 and why I thought it was mostly an unsuccessful pilot series. I think, like Series 12 of Doctor Who, Series 2 of Torchwood covers and improves on many of the flaws of the previous series. The character development is much better, the consistency and quality is much better, the tone is much more secured and better, there's more emotion and connection, especially with the characters, and there's more build up and of storylines which are all very necessary, rather than Series 1 which wasn't necessary. Plus, we've got a great story arc going on. Let's start with the story arc. Series 1 didn't really have much of an arc. It had mentions of Baden, or whatever he was called, and Billis Manger popped up a couple of times at the end. Susie Costello made a few appearances throughout the series. You know, there wasn't really too much going on there in terms of story arc. This series, Chibnall integrated a story arc, and this series Chibnall had full control, which was great. And Series 2 of Torchwood is one of the best things I've seen from him. This story arc is really great, it's really intriguing. I'm not particularly a fan of the way it's resolved in Exit Wounds, the series finale, but throughout the series there's constant references towards Grey. We get much more of an insight into Captain Jack's backstory. We get the introduction of Captain John Hart, who I don't like. He's a popular character in the show, but I find him a bit too OTT. He's played by James Masters, who starred in Buffy. I can't remember his character name, but that's probably blasphemy to some of you. But yeah, I'm not a fan of his character. But the story arc's really interesting, especially in Adam, episode 5 of this series, where we get a real sense of Captain Jack. That's not the only story arc, though. We've got character arcs going on here, which are really great. You've got Gwen trying to balance her life between Torchwood and her home life. Rhys in this series, her husband, finds out about Torchwood. He gets involved on some of the adventures. He gets involved in fighting some of the aliens, especially in the episode he finds out, which is Meat. You also have Owen and his character arc, which is great, and that involves him dying in Reset, which is episode 6 of the series, and then coming back to life in Dead Man Walking. And, you know, there's some grim sort of references to the afterlife, or the lack thereof, and his fear of going back to the dead. And obviously that comes full circle when he actually dies, and they can't go back on it, in the series finale, Exit Wounds. There's also the lovely character arc between Tosh and Owen, which is a lovely love story thing that goes on. It's first touched upon in the opener, I think. It's really built upon. They usually really effectively manage to integrate that love story there subtly into the story somehow, and it never feels forced. It's usually just subtly integrated, like in Adam, in particular, which sees Owen change into a much more dorky self, and you know he expresses his feelings for Tosh, but then when he goes back to his normal self, his normal playboy attitude, he just sort of turns back to normal and refuses to admit his feelings for her, which is a lovely storyline. And it's really nice how it flows through, especially at the end of Exit Wounds, when we get the scene where Tosh leaves a video message for Owen and the Torchwood team on the video system, and well, Owen's dead, but it's quite a sad moment because she doesn't know that he's dead, or he's dying at that point, and it's really sad. It's really sad. Anyway, yeah, I think Ianto's the only one who doesn't really get a character arc here. He has some good moments throughout. He's much better characterised than in Series 1. But he doesn't really have a great deal to do in Series 2. He's just sort of there again in most stories. I think Throughout the Rain is the one he gets the most to do, which is weird. So it's kind of good. I miss the characters of Tosh and Owen afterwards, but it's kind of good that we leave Jack, Gwen and Ianto as the only members of the team in the series finale. I think that gave me hope that Ianto would be better characterised in the future, which he was. And I think there's glimmers of promise for Ianto, and I think Tosh and Owen here are great characters, whereas in Series 1 I wasn't really fond of them. I grew a great connection to them, and I was actually sad when they died. So yeah, I was fond of all the characters here, really. Even Ianto, I thought all of them were well characterised. All of them were well balanced. It was a recurring problem in Series 1, where some of the characters were always sidelined. A bit like in Series 11 of Doctor Who, where you usually just had Graham go off or Yaz go off, and then the other two usually just sort of stood there in the background. Here you'd usually have Jack and Gwen and Owen have something to do, and then Tosh and Ianto would just sort of be there in the background. Whereas in Series 2, all of them usually got stuff to do in each episode. They all got their little missions that were assigned on. And that's noticeable from the start. Also, it feels like the show's not taking itself as seriously. Obviously, there's still some very dark tones, which are handled much better than in the first series. But it has a bit more fun. In episodes like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and Something Borrowed, they're very stupid. But they don't take the concept seriously. They just have a lot of fun with it. They play around. And they're a lot of fun as a result. And they're very enjoyable stories. And yeah, I think that darkness is played much better and in a much more adult way. I think Fragments especially is a good example of how these characters are utilised better. I'm not a fan of Fragments as an episode. I find it very overrated. But I love the concept of it, and I love what they tried to do with it. And I love some of the strands that are going on there. I think there's some lovely emotional episodes. I think the emotional stuff is really there this time. I think Adrift in particular is very sad and follows a tale of a missing young person and his mother trying to find him, and it's very sad. It's a very moving story. But again, this series highlights the flaws of the characters and that they're not perfect, and the consequences that can have, and the consequences that Torchwood life can have, because this series really does show that effect. Also, we get Martha Jones pop up for a few episodes in Reset and Dead Man Walking and Day and the Death. And yeah, it's nice to see Martha Jones pop up. It's a good return to the character, and it's good that we cross over to the show and have some references towards stuff that happened in the show in terms of the Saxon stuff and everything. And also we get Jack's return in episode 1 from the events of the Series 3 finale, when he went off with the Doctor and Martha to fight the Master. And yeah, there's some lovely little references and connections to the show there, as there is throughout the series. I think there is with Tosh as well, because she met the Doctor before she joined Torchwood. So yeah, there's some lovely little connections, and they're more subtly integrated. The only episode I'm not particularly fond of is From Out of the Rain. It feels a bit stupid, it feels very boring, dragged out, and it feels more like a Sarah Jane Adventures. In fact, it feels exactly like the Sarah Jane Adventures episode with Bradley Walsh, just really a really boring version. And yeah, I think that's the only one I actually really don't like. But there's other episodes which I'm not too fond of. I'm not too fond of Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, even though it's fun at times. I'm not a fan of parts of it. Um, I'm not a fan of Dead Man Walking. I find it a bit stupid when the actual death actually stalks the hospital. That's a bit ridiculous, even for Torchwood. And as I say, Fragments I'm not fond of, but there's a lot of good stuff here. Namely, episodes like Sleeper, which I really like. I find that very underrated. To the Last Man, which is really clever and emotional and really a good character development episode for Tosh with some sort of spooky elements added to it, which is nice. Adam is great because it shows us different sides to the character the characters that we'd never seen before, and the concept of a new person integrating themselves in the group and making the other members of the team believe that he had been part of Torchwood for many years was great. It was a really interesting episode, and it really tests the team and their relationship, especially when Ianto becomes like a serial killer. Um, Reset is great, great cliffhanger, great concept, great to see Martha in the team, and as I say, Adrift and Exit Wounds, great stuff. So yeah, some really good stuff throughout the series going on here. And if you haven't watched it, I'd suggest watching a few episodes of Series 2 because it's very good. So yes, that's my thoughts on Torchwood Series 2. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave your thoughts on Series 2 below. I will be back tomorrow with my thoughts of Children of Earth, which is Series 3, which is often regarded as the best Torchwood series, and I'm surprised I haven't done a video on that yet. So stay tuned for that. That will be tomorrow at 5, and then on Thursday I'll be talking about Miracle Day, which will be a very interesting video. Anyway, please like and subscribe. Come back tomorrow from 5. Stay safe. Goodbye.